Hello and welcome to CTV News Across Canada for Tuesday, July 8th. We've got the top local stories from coast to coast, stories that affect you and the country. Thanks for joining us.
I did not fact check.
You did not fact check. So
this is the week U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is announcing the members of the vaccine panel at the Centers for Disease Control, something the Canadian Medical Association is watching carefully.
There are noted vaccine skeptics among this group who have echoed RFK Jr.'s ideas such as vitamins will prevent measles, such as that, chemical warfare or various other causes are responsible for the current measles outbreaks instead of the virus.
Dr. Shannon Charlebois says Kennedy and members of the panel will determine which vaccines will be funded in the U.S. The Canadian Medical Association says while medical misinformation has been around since the start of social media, the new U.S. administration is causing alarm for some Canadian health experts.
They've defunded the CDC by 40%, and that's quite significant. And what's more significant is where they have cut that funding from.
She points to things like sexual health clinics and the rise in cases of syphilis and HIV.
Not only do infectious diseases not respect geopolitical borders, but neither does mass media.
The article by the Canadian Medical Association says Canada cannot rely on its southern neighbour to monitor infectious diseases, and Charlebois says it's not just measles and syphilis.
Now we have avian flu, which is spread throughout the country in our domestic poultry. It's also crossed to cow herds in the U.S.
It has infected some humans working with the animals, but the fear is that if it mutates to spread from human to human, the effects will be devastating. The CMA is calling for a national vaccine registry as a first step to strengthening our own system and interoperable health records to allow for secure but easier access to health records between hospitals and between provinces.
And there is nothing sadder than a child dying of a completely preventable disease.
And on an individual level, Charlebois says, do question your doctor about anything you're unsure about. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
The rough estimate is a $2 million investment.
He presents himself online as a wealthy real estate investor. But if the allegations against him are true, much of Gareth West's money was really coming from an elaborate conspiracy to defraud unsuspecting seniors across the United States. West is one of 25 Canadians formally accused in a U.S. federal indictment of running a grandparent scam, where fraudsters trick individuals into believing a loved one is in legal trouble and in urgent need of bail money. Jeff Horncastle is with the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
At that point, a second suspect normally comes on the phone claiming to be law enforcement or a lawyer, requesting for the payment, typically in cash.
What's up, guys? My name is Gareth West.
23 of the 25 defendants were arrested back in March, but West and one other have been at large since. The RCMP says West was arrested on July 4th in the town of Saint-Colomban, about an hour north of Montreal. Police say he did not resist arrest and is now facing possible extradition to the United States. In the indictment, the U.S. attorney in Vermont alleges West was one of the leaders of the conspiracy that defrauded seniors of $21 million over a 3-year period starting in the summer of 2021. West is also accused of money laundering and, if found guilty, could face up to 40 years in prison. Last year, police raided 2 buildings in the Montreal area allegedly being used as call centers for the scam, including this one in Pointe Claire.
We discuss scams in general, how they come from overseas for the most part, but this it proves that it's not always the case, and highlights the importance of reporting to your local law enforcement and to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
He says the grandparent scam alone costs Canadians a reported $33 million every year. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The Anti-Fraud Centre estimates only 5 to 10% of fraud gets reported.
Always try to make the outgoing phone call, especially when there's a request for money or personal information.
Matt Gilmore, CTV News.
A burning smell still lingers in the air where a fire broke out in the Glebe Saturday night.
Firefighters going up and down and in and out, and a lot of stress.
Lori McLean was on a walk with her daughter when they saw smoke and massive flames.
It's so sad to see, oh my God, their life just went up in flames.
The fire started in a single-family home. When firefighters arrived on scene, it had already spread to 4 neighboring semi-detached homes, a large tree, and multiple outdoor decks.
I turn a corner around the 5th area, and boom, I see this fire that's like even taller than the houses around it. It's crazy. You can feel the heat from over where Muchmore is. But it was ridiculous and, like, obviously terrifying because I live really close.
A mom, dad, and 2 boys lived in the home where the fire started and are now displaced, along with 8 others. Fire crews are saying they had the fire under control within half an hour, but it was an aggressive fire attack, and they had to deal with several hazards, including live hydro lines and propane tanks.
There was a garage over this. That's again where the fire started.
Ottawa Fire Services confirming the massive blaze started in the garage.
The origin was determined to be the garage, but the cause is going to remain undetermined because the severe damage that didn't make it possible for investigators to reconstruct the scene. Unless new evidence comes to light, then this will remain undetermined at this time.
Liberal MP Yasir Naqvi visited the home, sharing these photos he took of the scene, writing the damage is a reminder of how much we need one another in difficult times. It's still not known when those displaced will be able to return home.
Life is just so fleeting, and we can't be sure of anything, and just enjoy every day and enjoy your friends and your home as much as you can, because you don't know when it's going to leave.
New Brunswick is formalizing direct-to-consumer alcohol sales with other participating jurisdictions across Canada. The provincial government says direct-to-consumer sales will give New Brunswick producers new business opportunities and a chance to reach new customers.
It's symbolic. It will not bring a lot of volume economically, but it is a good news, and it is a step that needed to be done.
The province says this will not have any impact on what will be on the shelves at NB liquor locations. It will, however, permit producers to ship directly to consumers in other participating jurisdictions. WA says it can be difficult to find made in New Brunswick alcohol products outside of the province.
And you go in the SCBO in Ontario and you look for one spirit from New Brunswick, there's none.
I spoke to a handful of people outside this Moncton liquor store today. Many of them tell me they're taking a wait-and-see approach to today's announcement, but one Halifax man says it's very good news.
I think it'll be beneficial for Canadians, especially what's going on with the States and stuff right now. I think it's good. It'll give people a chance to try different products from different provinces.
WA is calling for reciprocal agreements between the different regions New Brunswick wants to trade with.
And right now, NB Liquor don't use its buying power to trade with other countries and other provinces. And I think that would be the next step.
Today's announcement will also eliminate personal exemption limits for people entering the province. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
The summer of 1945 brought peace, prosperity, and in Windsor, the promise of a fresh start.
You had the bustle of everybody coming back from war. Downtown was lovely. It was a great place to be. But when the night came up, Windsor was a very different town.
Those summer nights, the city's shadows started hiding something sinister.
There occurred a series of attacks and then very brutal killings that occurred in Windsor parks, very close to where we are right now.
On July 24th, a man was found near death in a riverfront park, stabbed 7 times. By summer's end, 3 attacks would be reported, 2 men killed.
All of a sudden it became obvious that we had a serial killer in our midst.
Local historian and author Patrick Brode details the story of the Windsor Slasher in his book, The Slasher Killings. Post-war celebration derailed by fear.
Society suddenly didn't know who to trust anymore. People became hysterical with fear. You couldn't go out at night.
The slasher seemingly went quiet over the winter, but returned the summer of '46, and a pattern emerged.
All of a sudden, people realized that it was no mystery. The serial killer was victimizing one particular group. He was after gay men only.
This took the investigation and the public perception of the attacks down a different road. In the mid-40s, homosexuality was a crime. Even being suspected of being gay could lead to arrest, surveillance, job loss, and public shaming. Attention turned to the fact gay men were gathering by the river at night, not that they were being attacked and killed.
This is classic victim blaming, where it's like the equivalent of like when you say to some, like, oh, she deserved that because her skirt was too short.
On August 21st, 1946, police arrested 18-year-old Ronald Sears, linked to the case by a survivor's account and a knife left behind. He confessed. By then, 5 men had been attacked, 3 killed. A tumultuous trial saw Sears convicted of just 1 count, and after a brief stint in jail, he was sent to a psychiatric hospital.
His second last victim had been very cooperative with the police and told him exactly what happened and that he'd been involved in a gay encounter with Ron Sears. And for that, he was charged with gross indecency, and he ended up spending about 10 months in prison. So he spent more time in prison than Ron Sears did.
Sears died of tuberculosis in 1956. Over time, the Windsor Slasher case was forgotten, but the story and what it reveals about Windsor lives on through Broad's research.
It's odd to see how society then, and probably any time, can be led into this kind of moral panic by a combination of information and media saying certain things that are demonstrably not true, but accepting them as so and working up this whole hysteria. It happened then, could happen again tomorrow.
40-year-old Patrick Maguire walked out of the Barrie courthouse in good spirits after pleading guilty to dangerous driving causing bodily harm and leaving the scene of a crash that sent a Midland woman to hospital in life-threatening condition last summer. Initially charged with attempted murder, Maguire accepted responsibility for his role in the hit and run on August 12, 2024 at 3:40 a.m. that nearly killed 28-year-old Michelle Vayner following an argument at a home near Wellington and Robert Streets. Maguire had been with his girlfriend Georgia Quanbury that night when Quanbury and Vayner got into a fight. Maguire, while behind the wheel of his car, hit Vayner, who was rushed to hospital in Toronto, where she spent several weeks fighting for her life. Maguire's guilty plea comes 2 months after Quanbury made a deal of her own. She admitted to assaulting 3 women and threatening Vayner, who has an outstanding criminal matter of her own, before the courts, scheduled for trial this fall. Vayner and her partner Joe Leclerc have a history of drug charges dating back several years. The allegations against them have not been tested in court. Following 5 months in jail, Maguire was released from custody under strict conditions in January. Ahead of his sentencing hearing, Maguire remains banned from being behind the wheel of a car. Maguire is scheduled to be sentenced in September. Mike Arsledy, CTV News, Barrie.
This Winnipeg Community Centre was filled with rain Monday morning. By Tuesday, it will be filled with people getting out of harm's way. The town of Leaf Rapids is now under a mandatory evacuation order due to wildfires. This Sherrier lives there and says she isn't surprised.
We've known that this was a potential for the last few days, so I think everybody's pretty much been ready to go if we have to, but it's still stressful because we don't know.
The big question for Leaf Rapids' 350 residents is, what now?
We don't know. What is it like for us when we get there? Are the accommodations there for us? And also, a lot of our people here don't have vehicles.
She and others are headed for Winnipeg, and they have to be out by 10 a.m. Tuesday. And 576 residents from the town of Lynn Lake are evacuating to Brandon because of a new fire. And it's the second time they've had to flee in just over a month.
This fire that we're dealing with right now, fire number 42, is a new start that happened, I think 5 days ago.
This time around, things went smoother.
I advocated very hard with the province this time to get flights out of the community. They went straight to Brandon.
In this thickening situation, Sherrier says that remembering this important principle will help everyone.
I think the biggest thing right now is we all really need to help look out for one another. And if you can help someone, because we're all facing a hard time right now.
Harrison Shin, CTV News, Winnipeg.
A massive heap of rubble creating a hole in the downtown streetscape. It's what's left after fire destroyed a heritage building at 616 Talbot Street.
It's a sad big hole on Talbot Street.
City councillor and local historian Steve Peters says it's a big loss.
The building itself was constructed in 1881. It was known as the Acacia Block. For many years in the 1880s and into the 1890s, our first hospital was on the second floor of this building.
Susanna Pereira runs a business directly across the street.
I'm hoping that it's not going to negatively affect the downtown. I'm hoping that it'll get rebuilt and that it'll fit in with the history that we have.
This dramatic video captures the moment the upper levels collapsed, the front brick wall cascading down onto the street. The building was being renovated when fire tore through about 4 o'clock Sunday morning. Some 25 firefighters were on scene, tackling the blaze for several hours.
This was built in 1881, so all the wood components and whatnot are very, very dry, so they're just ready for that spark, right? It was in the process of being brought up to current fire code, but because there was no drywall or any fire stops within the actual building itself, it was just able to run loose.
The upper floors of the building next door are operated by housing nonprofit Indwell. 12 people have been temporarily displaced. Indwell saying in a statement that residents are unharmed. Meantime, 44-year-old Joseph Penfound of St. Thomas faces a charge of arson, among other related charges. Police Chief Mark Roskamp expressing frustration in a statement on Monday, referring to the suspect as a prolific offender. He also says the current bail approach allows high-risk individuals to reoffend once they're released. STPS believes in compassion, but not an automatic overcompensation to blame social determinants as the cause, and where chronic criminality is treated as a symptom. According to police, Penfound was out on bail for 13 criminal offenses and a probation order subject to 14 criminal offenses. Penfound has appeared in court and remains in custody. Brian Bicknell, CTV News.
It was the second time in less than a month that Regina's urgent care center closed early at 4 because of a physician shortage. It normally accepts patients until 9:30 in the evening. Recruiting doctors has been an ongoing challenge.
We have been careful not to or to understand the impact of recruiting physicians from the community away from family practices for recruitment of family physicians, and also the emergency room physicians. We need to be able to sustain emergency room services at the Pasco Hospital and the RGH.
Originally, the urgent care center was supposed to be open around the clock. Now the SHA says that between the center and emergency rooms, patient demand is being met.
We know that our peak demand throughout the day at the for urgent type services, be it that are coming through the emergency rooms or at the UCC, we're covering that now.
The province has plans to open additional urgent care centers in Saskatoon, Moose Jaw, Prince Albert, and North Battleford. The NDP opposition questions how the government plans to staff more facilities given the Regina situation.
But they can't even properly staff the one facility that they have open. You know, this is all smoke and mirrors.
The SHA says it will continue to assess how the urgent care center and emergency rooms are working together in meeting patient needs. It will guide a future decision on urgent care center hours. In the meantime, physician recruitment will continue. Wayne Mantika, CTV News, Regina.
A thunderstorm over Saskatoon significantly affected much of the city on Sunday night.
There's always a chance that our infrastructure may be impacted by that severe weather.
Depending on the area, Saskatoon saw between 23 and 37 millimeters of rain. Many residents took to social media to share images of the significant flooding around the city.
When we got heavy rains like this in the summertime in particular, and in particular in cities, we do see like urban flash flooding or pooling of water on the roads, I guess is a more minor form of the flash flooding. But we do see this happen in cities right across Canada.
In addition to watery roads, Saskatoon Light and Power says around 20,000 residents were impacted by power outages. These outages were due in part to one of Sask Power's transmission lines being struck by lightning.
It's certainly not uncommon. And usually whenever a lightning strike happens to one of our power lines, it throws a breaker, much like you would have inside of your home. If you were to plug something in incorrectly, it would typically throw the breaker on your panel.
As thunderstorm season continues across the province, Sask Power is encouraging residents to brush up on their thunderstorm safety.
Lightning, anything like that, there is a chance that people could come across these downed lines. And if anyone does come across any like a damaged pole or a downed line, stay back a safe distance. We recommend 10 meters or about 33 feet.
Anyone who comes across a damaged power line is advised to either call the Sask Power outage line or 911. Hallie Mandrick, CTV News, Saskatoon.
An Edmonton family is mourning the death of a 5-year-old boy. It happened last Wednesday at a high-rise just off of Jasper Avenue and 121st Street. Edmonton police say that the boy fell off of the roof. A tenant is telling us that it was a balcony. Now, we just spoke with the father this afternoon. He is asking for privacy for his family. He says that he is trying to stay strong for his wife and his other children. Now, they are getting a lot of support from family, friends, strangers. Now, over the next 3 days, there are going to be people who can offer their condolences at the Ethiopian Community Center. A tenant tells CTV News the boy's family lived on the 21st floor. She says the boy's father approached her on the main floor asking if she saw his son. She says a few minutes later, first responders showed up.
We were there for a while, just kind of talking about things, and that's when we found out that he had fallen from the balcony, and two residents at least saw him fall. They told us eventually, we had to go to our units to give them a chance to grieve.
The property management company Hazelview Properties declined CTV's interview request. Now, it did issue a statement saying in part, at this stage, we have no indication to believe that the incident was caused by any structural issue or defect with the building. Adding, all balconies at the property meet the safety requirements set out in the building code. Hazelview Properties says that it is offering free counseling services to its tenants. It is also working with Edmonton Police as they investigate the circumstances surrounding this fall. Now, Edmonton Police are not releasing further details at this moment. Naramnisa, CTV News, Edmonton.
For years, his name has inspired loathing and anger.
He was a monster, and he took my mother's life.
And when former Port Coquitlam pig farmer Robert Willie Pikton died after being attacked in a Quebec prison last year, his victims' families felt a range of emotions.
I felt very uplifted, actually.
How the 74-year-old serial killer could be fatally injured in a maximum security prison was an open question.
The Correctional Service has a process in place to review all of these circumstances.
That review is now complete. The Board of Investigation interviewed 35 staff and reviewed surveillance video, finding prisoners had easy access to cleaning supplies. The report confirmed what victims' families were told last year by their lawyer about an assault by a fellow inmate.
He broke a broom handle, and when you break something like a broom handle, you always get a sharp end. So he took the sharp end and he put it up into his skull.
This is not the first time somebody's broken a broomstick and used it as a weapon.
Mark Campbell was Pikton's warden when he was imprisoned at the Kent Institution in Agassiz.
His contact with other offenders was minimal to none, mostly with staff.
The review found poor record keeping around Pikton and his attackers' behavior and interactions at the Port Cartier Institution. Campbell says that and the broom access also endangered staff and should be a wake-up call.
It is a warning to other facilities, but this has come up in previous boards of investigations. So my question would be, what was the policy at the time related to those types of materials? And did CSC follow them?
The Correctional Service of Canada stated all recommendations have been accepted and work is underway to implement them as we work towards making our institutions safer for all our employees, inmates, and visitors. No one has been charged yet in Pikton's killing, which is a grim irony. Pikton himself was convicted of murdering 6 women, but never stood trial for the 43 others he was suspected of killing. Penny Dufflaw, CTV News, Vancouver.